Hey guys, CEO of Pokkecorp here, and in this video we are going to be analyzing and breaking down everything you need to know about our brand new feat moon girl Columbina. So personally, I've been waiting forever to prove her since her announcement, and frankly speaking, part of the reason why I started showing interest in Genshin Impact again is because of Columbina's inclusion to the story. With regards to Ikih, we have tried our absolute hardest to take a look at what she's going to be offering, so let's just jump straight into the video talking about Columbina. So in summary, Columbina is going to be a 5-star catalyst user wielding the Hydro element. She mainly specializes in all-field sub-DPS, acting as a universal support for lunar reactions such as Lunar Charge, Lunar Bloom, and Lunar Crystallize. You can build her as an on-field DPS as well for a secondary option, and you guys are already aware of what Lunar Charge as well as how Lunar Bloom is going to be cooking. As for Lunar Crystallize, in short, it's a reaction between Hydro and Geo, which creates moon constructs rather than elemental shards. So these constructs will deal periodic damage to the enemies, and Columbina not only helps enable these reactions but also increases the base damage for all lunar reactions. So if you're going to be running teams focused on lunar reactions, she's pretty much the best addition and fitting into all sort of Noctri teams comfortably with the best value. Now, since Columbina specializes on lunar reactions, you primarily want to run her on Noctri teams, though she can still perform decently on other teams as well, but unfortunately she will be a lot more underwhelming for non-Noctri teams. Now, that being said, the more I look into her kit and gameplay, the more I realize she's pretty much the Cyrene of Noctri. So the items above are the materials that you will need to get her fully leveled. I recommend that you get her to level 90 because she does skill with HP%, which is a crucial part of the kit later on. So with that out of the way, let's just take a look into her talents and passive and what her entire kit is going to be about. So regarding the Scripwriter kit, you do have the normal as well as charge attack. For the normal attack over here, she has a 3 combo dealing hydro damage, but you will pretty much never use this, and neither her charge attack unless you build her as a DPS. Her charge attack works in 2 ways, the first being your typical charge attack consuming stamina and dealing AoE hydro damage, but if you have at least one Verdant Dew in possession, you can get the triggering Lunar Bloom. Charge attack is going to be replaced with a special attack called Moon Dew Cleanse, where Columbina doesn't consume stamina and instead consumes 1 Verdant Dew and deals 3 instances of Lunar Bloom damage. Regarding her elemental skill, while the description looks pretty complex, to put it simply, after casting a skill, she will summon a ring behind her called a Gravity Ring, which will follow your active Converter, dealing AoE hydro damage every 2 seconds while generating elemental particles every alternative hit. So do know that the ring will become larger if your party is at the Ascendant Gleam. So while the Gravity Ripple is on field, Columbina can apply Gravity every single time you trigger any lunar reaction. 20 gravity can be accumulated every 2 seconds for a maximum of 60 gravity stacks. So once you do get 60 gravity stacks, Columbina will then do a special attack called Kuvaki Interference, which deals lunar damage based on the lunar reaction accrue the most gravity for her. So the lunar reaction which accrue the most gravity has the following effects on Kuvaki Interference. If it's Lunar Charge, it will deal AoE Electro damage. If it's Lunar Bloom, it will deal Dendro damage. And if it's Lunar Crystallize, it will deal AoE Geo damage. So as long as you trigger her skills and lunar reactions consistently, Kuvaki Interference will be fired every 6 seconds. And then moving on to her Ultima or Elemental Burst, which is another important part to her kit, it is going to be AoE Hydro damage and summoning Lunar Domain. Within this domain, your party will gain increased lunar reaction damage bonus, which is very similar to Cassante's domain, providing various buffs to the party. Now, it is very important to note that Columbina's A4 passive Law of the New Moon works with a burst where converters trigger lunar reactions inside this domain will give the following buffs based on the lunar reaction. If Lunar Charge is triggered, the attack interval on the Thundercloud is reduced by 0.5 seconds and hits every 1.5 seconds. If Bloom is triggered, it will add 3 more Verdant Dews over 18 seconds, and total cap for Dew goes to 6, where those extra Dews takes priority upon consumption. In the case of Lunar Crystallize, every Moon Drift or the constructs will have a 1 in 3 chance to deal an additional attack. So it is very important to note that Lunar Bloom buffs because the 3 extra Dews is a fixed constraint with Nefer, where she consumes the Dews too quickly. With Columbina, her rotations are a lot smoother and more comfortable, which is the best effect out of all of the lunar reaction buffs. Since we have an understanding of her basic kit, let's take a look at what her passive is going to be doing, which is a 5% crit rate passive on firing Kuvaki Interference every 10 seconds all the way to 15%. Her next passive, Moon Sign Benediction, lets Columbina enable lunar reactions while increasing the base damage of them by 0.2% for every 1000 HP, so at 35,000 HP, her damage is going to be getting the full 7% damage bonus. Now, a last passive is when a character in your party is defeated, you can essentially revive them to X amount of HP based on your friendship level. So this effect takes place every 100 seconds, basically your E6 Barbara in Nocrai. Overall, this is gonna be your talent priority. You should mainly focus on your skill as well as burst, giving it a higher priority, getting them to at least level 8 for optimal output, or better to go all in and max it since they give many efficient buffs. You can ignore a normal attack unless you use a main DPS, in which case you can get it to a high level as well. So with that out of the way, let's just jump into how exactly do you build Columbina. As most of you are aware, you pretty much want to build her as high of a HP as possible because that's where she scales all of her lunar reaction from. The bare minimum should be 35,000 for the 7% effect, but you do want to have a little bit of crit as well because despite HP being the base multiplier, it does not affect the trigger damage or set reaction as she will be the one triggering those reactions. So it might be a little bit frustrating to build crit rate as well as crit damage on top of HP, but on the crit itself, you can see that you have a lot of base crit rate at 19.2% as well as a passive and stop steps giving her even more crit rate. As for the energy requirement, she will stack energy slowly over time. For Columbina, she is gonna be the only Hydro unit in the team. You would want sufficient energy to keep the uptime of burst for the rotation, though you can achieve this quite comfortably through artifact subsets and weapons in which we'll be covering shortly. My recommendation is going HP percent on the Goblet as it's undoubtedly better than Hydro damage, even if you're running her as a DPS. For the time sense, first priority is HP percent, but energy regeneration can also be used if you cannot reach the thresholds. And lastly, for a circular, use crit damage because you get a lot of crit rate from the sources I mentioned, but HP can take priority if you cannot reach the 35,000 mark. So this is gonna be an example for the energy requirements for the different weapons. So if she's a solo Hydro with no energy regeneration weapons, it's 240%. For Favenus, rank 5 is 190, Prototype Ember at 170, and Nocturne at 130%. Lastly, for the subsets, get more energy regeneration because it's very essential for your burst to achieve maximum uptime as per energy requirements. Typically, you would want to prefer at least HP percent for 35,000 HP for maximum buff effect, but crit rate and crit damage is also very nice for reaction damage as well as for personal damage output. So moving on to the actual artifacts, her best in slot is definitely going to be the brand new Abude of the Morning Star, giving her 80 EM on a 2-piece and most importantly, increase all lunar reactions by a whopping 60% for the 4-piece if she's going to be off-field. So if she's going to be running as a sub DPS, which is going to be a main role, this is definitely going to be the best in slot. If you do not feel like farming an entirely new domain, the next best strategy is going for the Silken Moon, giving her 20% energy regeneration, as well as a 4-piece that increases your party-wide elemental mastery by 120, as well as lunar reaction damage by 20%. Now keep in mind that this 4-piece cannot stack, hence only one unit per party can have this set, so run your teams accordingly. From my testings in the cases of Nefer as well as Lauma teams, Columbina with Silken Moon and Lauma running 2+2 EM gave nearly the same damage output as compared to Columbina running the Morningstar stat. Therefore, it is not a landslide difference if you don't feel like getting the new set despite being the best in slot. However, in the case of Flints and Inefa, the new set boosts the team damage much more significantly. If you're planning putting for Jibai as well as running her alongside Columbina, it is best you give her the new set. Now jumping to the weapons, starting off with the signature Ballet of Crossroads. It will give her a 14% HP boost as well as a lunar reaction, giving her 12 energy, which further increases HP by 14%, as well as a crit damage boost of 148%, including the stats of lunar damage. Not only does this cover her energy restrictions, but also a massive HP and crit damage increase, which is undoubtedly the best in slot for every weapon in the game. That being said, there are a lot of free-to-play options. So for example, Prototype Ember, which is basically the free version of the signature weapon, giving her HP percent, energy regeneration, as well as team-wide healing. On top of that, if you're using her burst but the effects are not effective, it makes her feel more flexible and comfortable to run sustainably because she can act as a sustain for herself. Other good free-to-play options including the classic Favenus, which gives her ample energy regeneration and lets you run more HP percentage on the sense, helping her fulfill her energy requirements as well as HP. Other than these two, basically any weapon with HP percent, crit or energy will work as per the stat stick, but since Prototype Ember is a craftable free-to-play option and is already amazing, I'll recommend getting that. So here's a comparison for every weapon, keeping Prototype Ember as the benchmark and comparing various other catalysts to it. It is important to note that the weapons ranked over here are not objective and may vary depending on circumstances like our stat requirements, team comps, etc. Where in double Hydro teams, non-energy options are better, and where teams who use the Lauma, crit stats may perform better due to the Ascendant Gleam effect. Moving on to the next part, which is pretty much going to be her Constellations. Now, before diving in, Columbina has something called the Elevation buff, where every single constellation will increase the whole party's lunar reaction damage by a certain amount, which are C1, C3, C4, and C5 for 1.5% per constellation, and C2 and C6 is 7% per constellation. So for each individual constellation, C1 basically gives you two things. When you cast your skill, it triggers a special effect equivalent to the special attack Kuvaki Interference once every 15 seconds. Second of all, the lunar reaction which gonna be accrued the most gravity is gonna be for Lunar Bloom. Active character will get 6 energy, helping Columbina with the energy demands, and if it's Lunar Charge, increase active character resistance to being interrupted, which is kind of a whatever, but it helps you a lot more comfortably if you're gonna be running Columbina as the main DPS. And for Lunar Crystallize, it will give you a shield that absorbs up to 12% of Columbina's max HP and absorbs hydro damage 250% more effectively. This is way more defensive, making a sustainless team even more practical. Overall, it is an absolutely insane constellation which increases the final damage output by 28%. Now for the C2 is absolutely insane, game-changing some might even say, which is pretty much one of the most insane constellation, basically Cassandra C2 but on steroids. So first of all, Columbina now accumulates gravity 34% faster, and second and most importantly, she will have this thing called the Lunar Brilliance, where after she fires Kuvaki Interference, it will have a 40% HP boost for 8 seconds. So during this time, for Lunar Charge, your active character's attacks is increased by 1% of Columbina's max HP. For the Elemental Mastery in Lunar Bloom is 0.35% of its max HP, and for Lunar Crystallize, it's increased your defense by 1% of your max HP. So typically, this constellation will increase Columbina's damage by a massive 40%. So for those going for a good topping point, C2 is gonna be a very good place. For C3 and C5, it's basically gonna increase your levels, and then going to the C4, this is gonna give her 4 energy on triggering Kuvaki Interference. And additionally, if the reaction that accumulated the most gravity is Lunar Charge or Crystallize, the damage of Kuvaki Interference increases by 12.5%. If it's gonna be Bloom, then it'll be 2.5% respectively. So I would say it's pretty decent, but nothing too crazy compared to the C2. And then lastly, for the C6, is going to be increasing crit damage of all elements by 80% for 8 seconds, which cannot be stacked. Pretty self-explanatory, but I don't think it's going to be that crazy for a C6, which is honestly really nice. So a very good stopping point personally is definitely going to be the C2. And at this particular point, between C1 or R1, I would still go for a signature weapon as it fulfills all of its essential stats like HP, energy, and crit rate, and increasing the buffs universally rather than the separate effects for each specific lunar reaction. Now lastly, this is gonna be the team composition. With Columbina being the premium support for lunar reaction based teams, it would make her the strongest lunar support in the entire game, so she seamlessly fits in and works amazingly with all 3 different lunar DPS characters. So first of all, being Nefer. As we saw from Nefer's kit, since Columbina's burst now gives 3 extra deals, La Uma can now hold skill to give higher Lunar Bloom damage to the team, which works exceptionally well with Columbina because she can deal more Lunar Bloom damage onto her burst and lets Nefer be pretty much the best DPS in the game as for the meta, making her pump out absolutely insane damage. All 3 units work perfectly with one another, making Columbina a very compelling pool option if you want to main Nefer teams. As for the 4th slot, it's pretty flexible if you're running Sustainless, which is a very practical option regardless if you run Prototype Ember or the C1 La Uma. The best 4th slot is pretty much going to be Cassandra, marking the enemies and amplifying Dendro damage. For the free-to-play options like Sucrose and C6 Ino, they're also really viable for increasing your party EM as well as Lunar Amplification. Sustained options also include Kuki Shinobu being the best alternative option, with Nefer as well as being the best sustain providing shields, further increasing your overall team damage. Other options like Baizu, Kokomi, Yao can also work applying certain elements buffs, although they don't synergize as much. Then the next team is pretty much going to be Flint's. Her best option for a Lunar Charge team is pretty much going to be there alongside with himself in Nefer and Sucrose, having received just another insane support by the name of Columbina, who pretty much just replaced Aino's role. By using the VV defense strat from Sucrose, using Flint's burst and skill inside Columbina's domain can enable faster Lunar Cloud hits as well as the increased base damage for Lunar Charge reactions. The 4th slot for Sucrose can also be replaced with C6 Yahoda, though she does require C6 and take out a lot of field time as well. Another amazing option is Durin, who gives resistance stranding from his base kit, giving more personal damage through overloads and vaporize. Even without a Nefer, despite not having a sustain, Columbina still works very well with Flint's replaced with Fischl in both Durin and Sucrose scenarios, dealing significant damage, while considering the fact that with Sucrose, having Fischl gains the Hex Theory buff in addition. So even if you do have Flint's, getting a Nefer is slightly a higher priority because she can sustain, but getting either her or Columbina guarantees you a massive increase in damage for a team regardless. Next is gonna be Jibai, or you know what? Yep, 自白. Giving the new Luna DPS released alongside our new Luna Crystallized reaction, 自白 along with other outlets at least E2 with Luga, which is going to be the brand new tailored 4-star. Columbina is her best in slot support alongside her. The sustain slot being filled by C6 Goro as he can heal with his C4 and increase Geo's crit damage significantly at C6. It will feel a little bit underwhelming if you don't have him at C6, though other really good options include Zhongli, who can provide unbreakable shield as well as elemental strength from his skill, giving the team more damage. Neva can also work pretty well, but make sure she does not interrupt your Lunar Crystallized reactions with her Lunar Charge triggers. Another option is Sidonen with her elemental shred and healing, but some notable sustains include Xingque or Yelan or even Dahlia as it can work as further options. If you do not have Luga, other units like Aino or even Farina can fill this slot, though this team may not be as great as compared to C2 Luga and C4 to C6 Goro. Despite her working incredibly well with Luna teams, she is not entirely bound by them as one would think. So for instance, Columbina with Nefa aka Binefa combo is insane for buffing Luna Charge with their passives and kits, making use of any DPS who synergizes well with them, like Fischl, Raiden Shogun, Veresa, or Chlorine. Every other elemental DPS like Hu Tao, Arlecchino, Noel, Ito can also work really well with this combination, so if you want to use a favorite character who have fell off, this Binefa wheelchair synergy with Sucrose or Cookie as sustains is the brand new option for all DPS to shine again. She can also play dual Lunar reaction teams with both Uma and Yennefer, having Nervula as the main DPS triggering Lunar Bloom and Lunar Charge while dealing massive damage. On top of that, Nervula gains yet another new team just like it does every single patch. And then one last thing just for fun is gonna be Columbina as the main DPS if you pair up with Uma in Lunar Bloom teams. As the Uma holds her skill, she provides increased Lunar Bloom damage, Danju application on the consistent hits and on bursts, providing Quails, which increases Lunar damage bloom significantly. These will play a role in allowing Columbina to trigger even more powerful Lunar Bloom reactions, and it can be expanded to your regular Bloom units such as Nilo, Cassandre, as well as Baizhu, who amplify the Bloom trigger damage even more, while Baizhu also enables sustained healing. With that, we have come to the end of today's content, and all in all, that's pretty much everything you need to know about Columbina from her kit, builds, best teams, and etc. She's undoubtedly the best Luna support ever released, so if you're running or planning to run on a Luna-based team, she's the second best in terms of pool value that you ever have among the Notcry roster. Keeping all the meta aside, she seems really fun to play and just use with beautiful animation and details, so all the best for your Gacha pools, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.